Hello, my name's Elijah Walsh, and today's review is Chris Reynolds' new movie, Despicable Me 4. Gru, who is still part of the Anti-Villain League, is now with his family, only this time, after being threatened by Maxine Livman, being portrayed by Will Ferrell, who's seeking revenge over some shenanigans in the past. Gru, and of course all of his family, have to go to a secret safe house to essentially lay low and also readjust to new lives, and of course they have to deal with a bizarre next door neighbor who she fantasized about joining up with the villain side of things, and of course the minions becoming essentially glorified superheroes. The series created by Illumination Studios and being the fourth installment of the main franchise and sixth overall of the Minion Despicable Me saga. This being the first Despicable Me film since 2017's Despicable Me, even though I wasn't particularly too much of a huge fan of that movie, particularly how dry the film just came off as the movie. I just felt like it needed a little bit more fresh air to to go on marching forward. And of course there's the Minion sequel, Rise of Gru, which came out in 2022, as in 2 years ago, even though in my opinion this was the worst in the entire series, given the story was like really hard to follow, and I felt like the people setup was just going nowhere at the end of it, in my opinion, particularly how it completely wraps up that Gru has some sort of connection with the Anti-Villain League, even around that point, and of course about his aspirations, which kind of answers quite a lot of questions. So with the new movie, Despicable Me 4, it pretty much has a somewhat, in my opinion, low bar to clear. So, does it clear it? For my opinion on Despicable Me 4, it's kind of down the middle of the road, as in I have very, very mixed feelings about the movie before coming into this movie, and now unfortunately coming after this movie, as in, yes, I feel like at this point the franchise is somewhat running on fumes or running on empty, I guess. But I feel like at this point the franchise knows it's coming to an end, and it doesn't know if it wants to bow out gracefully or just continue like pumping them out at a like once every couple of years, essentially like a diet Marvel cinematic universe. But again, in my opinion, it does have some shining qualities in this movie, like which I will get into in a moment, like particularly humor and some of the subplots as well. The subplot that I do find favourable, in my opinion, is Poppy, voiced by Joey King, as this aspiring supervillainess who tries to sneak into the Gru's old villain school to essentially steal the mascot, which is a really violent badger. And also the badger happen to be a pet of a really uber strict principal who goes into the said villain school. Again, I find the idea of Gru essentially harkening back to his earlier roots as a supervillain, and essentially has a new protege pretty much under his wing at this point, which is again a very interesting concept. If they even though I feel like this is the best they got with it, like how they went through with it. I wish in the upcoming sequels, if there are any, that this relationship does go on a lot more deeply, in my opinion, like especially as an employer-employee worker relationship, which is again something I do find extremely fascinating in my opinion. But there's also the stuff of minions becoming essentially super minions, like one can fly, one can eat through anything, one's super strong, one has laser eyes, and one is essentially a stretchy Mr. Tickle character. And they're in the movie for a grand total of 5 minutes. Like, you had them all over your advertisement, and you pretty much shoehorned them into like 5 minutes, practically into like the second half of this movie. Like, come on, this is like the greatest waste of animation time since me watching the Mega Man 2 sequel. And also in this movie, Gru is now a dad, not just to the 3 girls, but also to a new kid, as in Gru Jr. As in between films, he now has a little child of his own. Finally, between him and Lucy, and of course there's. He does have some really funny antics to go along the way to essentially pin down the humor of fatherhood being particularly difficult, as Gru is like frightened by balloons, or accidentally snuffs an entire banana up his nose when he's trying to eat it, which is again something I find extremely hilarious. I feel like a lot of the humour does boil down to a lot from Gru Jr., who's again a really great comic relief, as well as the minions, who do have some comic bits here and there, but don't feature as much or as great volume as they did in the previous films. But again, they're still around, even though they're not as much there. Even though they're kind of more in the background, in my opinion, the minions. And Gru, of course, has some new villains, like there's Maxime Le Man, who pretty much is the most one-dimensional villain out of the entire Despicable Me franchise, as well as Minions. As in, I can name only like three things, like a couple things about him. Like, he has French accent, he likes cockroach, and he has a hairstyle that reminds me of Matty Healy from the Girls' music video from 1975. As in, shaved off back and sides and way too long on top. Like, it kind of reminds me of that, but possibly less douchey at best. As he's just so one-dimensional. Like, there's nothing kind of bouncing off of him. Like, and your motive of like trying to defeat Gru is just because he had the same song as you from the talent show. As in, Boy George, come a chameleon. Like, really, is that the thing? Is that the one thing that you want to destroy Gru for? Is because he had the same song as you in that talent show school? Like, come on, I probably want to make more enemies from less petty things. And there's Sophie Vergara as Valentina, as Maxine's girlfriend, who's just there. Even though I completely forgot what she does in this movie, she's just there. Even though I don't want to go too incredibly hard on this movie, like, there are some really good moments in this movie. There's this one tracking shot of the minions at a workplace, particularly in the AVL, as this one tracking shot essentially follows the minions through these office cubicles, and finally ends up with Silas Ramsbottom, voiced by Steve Coogan. And I think pretty much how the minions pretty much interact with everyone else, even non-humans, and as well as minions themselves, and how they prank about in the office, how they readjust themselves in the office space, all in this pretty neatly done tracking shot, which is again pretty neat when pulled off in animation, and pretty amazing again pulled off in camera work as well, which is again really good as well in my opinion. The animation as well is particularly pretty good as well. And of course, I do like a lot of how the animation is pulled off, particularly where they're staying at their safe house, and how it's like a cold, crumbling house. Rest of the like really high-earning neighborhoods, which is again I really like that juxtaposition as well. Not in a commentary of like class divide or anything, but they got probably the cheapest house they could find on Airbnb. Again, this is going to spoiler territory, so you might want to skip ahead like 1 minute at best. So, the particularly final act, the fight scene between Maxime and Gru goes down, and of course they kidnap the kid, kidnap Gru Jr. Even though I do not understand how he knew that Gru had another kid, unless he's Kendrick Lamar for all I know. I don't know what he wants to do with the kid, except transform into this alchemy project of cockroach human something, which they kind of just reverse at the end of it, like, oh, no biggie, here's your baby. And Dr. Nefari is back because Russell Brand is being replaced by Regime Rackenham, because Russell Brand turned out to be a completely creepy douchebag who has more skeletons in the closet than actual skeletons in the closet, and they not to be sidetracked again, because the fight scene in the third act was just like, why? Like Maxim barely put up a fight. Like neither did Gru as well. Like, he gets defeated by Gru Jr. and he just fell, and he gets defeated by Mega Minions, and like, hey, we're still here, even though we're here for 5 minutes, we're still here. In my opinion, Despicable Me 4 is just proof that the Despicable Me franchise is, at this point, is just running on fumes at this point, or running on an empty tank. Even though I do like some animation here and there, I do like a lot of the humor as well. I do like particularly the subplot revolving around Poppy and Gru, and Poppy being the protege to Gru. or I mean the other way around, sorry. But again, I just feel like the movie, the series kind of knows it's coming to an end and it's trying to wrap things up like it did at the very end of the movie, where yeah, which I don't want to spoil any further in my opinion. But in my opinion, it just feels like it's just knows the franchise is about to stop very soon at the moment, so it kind of needs to do the oh there's this, oh there's that, even though it just feels like it's just nothing much goes on in this movie. Even though if it's like not Despicable Me movie, it could be some stuff I may have found on Netflix. But no, this is Despicable Me. I feel like there's not much room left for improvement, considering this feels like the franchise that's pivoting towards like, oh yeah, we're going to make a final chapter soon because we're kind of almost out of ideas. So with Despicable Me 4, I'm feeling a 5 to 6 out of 10. So, what do you think of Despicable Me 4? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and this is Larger World, and bye.